Hey, sports parents, if we haven't met, my name is Jonathan Carone, and I'm the host of the show. Today, we're joined by Sara Slattery. Sara's a two-time national champion in track and field at Colorado. She also ran professionally before moving into the coaching world, where she's coached adults, she's coached at the college level, and she's now coaching at the middle school level as well. She's also the mom to two incredible kids. In our conversation, we talk about the balance between pushing our kids who aren't motivated while also putting guardrails on our kids that might be a little too motivated. We talk about what success in youth sports actually looks like and what it means to create a culture around our kids where they feel comfortable expressing themselves, trying new things, and working through their emotions. Before we get to that conversation, if you like the show today, we're going to invite you to rate us and review us wherever you're listening. If you're listening to an Apple Podcast, writing up a small review would be a huge help. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Most of all, if this episode helps you in any way, the best thing you can do is share it with a friend. With all that out of the way, here's my conversation with Sara Slattery. Sara, thanks so much for joining us today. I appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me. I'm a big fan of the show.
Thanks for that. It's still a weird thing to hear people say that. I've yet to figure out the proper way to respond without feeling awkward. So thank you. All right. So you have reached the highest peaks of your sport. Like, you are a national champion runner. You ran professionally, and now you're having to watch your kids learn how to lose. Like, what has been the shift in you as mom, moving from like athlete and coach into mom and cheering on, knowing the process? Like, you didn't get to the levels you got to without knowing the process. So like, how has that had to shift as mom compared to when you were coaching or when you were running yourself?
Yeah, I think first when so I think I first started coaching when my daughter was 4 months old. So I was coaching at Grand Canyon University when she was there, and I had just stopped running professionally. And I jumped into an opportunity where it was rebuilding a program. So they were switching from D2 to D1. So my PRs were better than most of the men on the team. So that was like a huge growth, like an opportunity to grow this program. But I had to learn, like, not all, going into that role, I coached adults before that, and understanding that, your athletes don't think the way that you do. And so you have to understand and meet athletes where they're at and figure out what makes them, what drives them and what gets them excited to want to perform and be better athletes. And so I think I had to learn that the hard way. I just assumed that. I assumed that they're going to do the things that I always did or be as driven as I was. And so I think doing that at the university helped me a lot as a parent, because knowing that my kids, like, every kid is different, every kid is driven in a different way. And even though they're part of you, like, they're made up of you and your husband, or your significant other, they're totally different people than you are. So I think I've seen that and I remind my husband about a lot because we're both very different in how we're driven. And so we see that in our kids a lot. And with our son, he's a very highly motivated, highly competitive kid that, like, just wants to get out there. Where my daughter, and both of them, like, my daughter she wanted her friends to be there. She wanted it to be fun. But at the same time, like, recently, like, I've seen those competitive drives in her where she can be very aggressive. And part of that comes probably from having an older brother too, and fighting for her, for everything that she wants. But that didn't come out right away. It was more, I want to be out there because I want to have fun. I want to, like, be around my friends. I want to do things with my friends. And so getting her, like, she with her sports things, I always made sure that she had friends on the team that she wanted to play with, that we were around good kids, and we had good coaches that were, like, going to create good environments for the kids. And so yeah, I just recently my daughter has started to get she swims club, and like she swam 4 or 5 years of rec swimming and wanted to do it year round, and so we made that jump, um, and she qualified for one of her bigger meets. But my husband didn't really see the competitiveness in her for a long time, and I was like, just wait, like it's there, like she loves what she's doing, and if we can continue and foster that, like those things will come out. I know that like I've seen it with the kids that I've coached before, but it needs to like she is someone that if it's not fun, like we're she's gonna quit the sport early. And I think I've written that book, How She Did It, and that was a big part of our book was we were seeing so many young girls in the sport get out of the sport early. And part of it was um coaching girls like boys, like coaching girls like men, but also in that puberty change too, where girls' bodies are changing and they don't find the fun, like they're not finding the fun in the sport anymore. It's becoming too serious, and they're um they're not like they're being misguided and like not quite encouraged to continue in sport, where we're losing girls around 12 or 13. And so I I want my daughter to stay in sport for as long as she wants to, and be around good kids that instill good values and create goals and learn the lessons that she's not going to quite learn just being in school. And so I really want her to have fun with it like throughout. So I want her to be on teams where she's continuing to grow and be around people that she likes, but also is challenged in good ways. So I think I don't know I kind of went off on a tangent with this, but that's where I feel like with coaching my kids, I got into where it differs from myself. I was super driven like my son. Like I see like I wanted to swim. I swam young and I played all sports growing up. So I grew up trying everything from softball. I played co-ed soccer. They didn't have girls soccer at the time, basketball, little league. I did softball too. And then I really loved swimming. And I was good at it. And so my parents put me in club, but that was a big financial burden on them. And so at that time, my aunt helped pay for like my first month of club swimming when I was young. And I'll always remember that, but I took it very seriously. So I was like swimming, I think in middle school, I was doing doubles, twice a day and, doing 2-hour practices. So like 4 hours some days of swimming. And, was traveling a lot by age 12. And I, I kind of hit a wall in high school with it where, I started to run and I was running as good or better than, and I wasn't trying very hard and I was swimming a lot more. So that's when I made the decision. But I, I feel like I put a lot I wanted to, but it got too serious where I didn't have anything else going on besides swimming, and that became my identity. And so I think that's why I jumped out of that and jumped into running, because I needed to find the fun in it again. So that's where I really want my daughter to enjoy it for as long as she can. Same with my son. My son, on the other hand, is very driven. He plays soccer. Um, he played soccer, didn't really enjoy it. We've tried a bunch of sports. He was very good at swimming, and we tried to we put him in club with my daughter, and he hated it. And so, so we took him out, and he does rec swimming still in the summer, and he likes it, and he swims with my nephew. But I think you learn like if they're not like they're never going to be the athlete they could be if they're not enjoying it. So that's where um we put like he really wanted to do football, so we're put like and he's in a good environment and we like that, and he's doing it, and he's trying all the middle school sports and he's enjoying those. So I think yeah, I think you you have to see the personalities and create environments where they will thrive and want to do it and continue to do it. And they're not you. They're, as much as you want them to be you, they're not you.
I want to talk about those personalities and the differences in just a second, but we're going to take a quick break to give you some resources about how you can parent your kids and get through this a little bit better. We'll be back with Sara in just a minute.
Have you ever showed up at the wrong field at the right time? Hey, my name's Zoe, and I've got 3 athletes on club and travel teams, and that's happened to me one too many times. So 2 years ago, I created a new app called Torgo, exclusively for sports parents. It imports schedules from all the different team apps, as well as your personal calendar to keep the entire family, including your kids, on the same page. Go to orgohq.com, download directly from the App Store or Google Play, and make Orgo part of your winning routine. Get the right people to the right places on time.
Hey, it's Jonathan. If you haven't signed up for the Weekend Playbook yet, this is your reminder to do that. It is a short, no-fluff email that lands every Friday with practical tips you can actually use before, during, and after your kid's game. And when you sign up, we'll also send you 4 of the top resources from Positive Coaching Alliance. They're one of the leading organizations in this country equipping parents and coaches in youth sports. The link's down in the show notes, so go check that out. All right, we're back with Sara now. And as you were talking, I had an idea that I wanted to go to that's not in our notes. So I'm throwing this at you without any warning. But you were talking about the difference in not pushing your daughter too fast, too early, but also your son is naturally driven like you were, but your natural drive without any brakes or guardrails kind of burned you out. And so I think the piece of this conversation that is so nuanced, it can't be that we only think about pushing our kids or that we hype them up if they're self-motivated, because a young kid who is self-motivated can push themselves too far. So there is a balance in there of like, hey kid, I know you're motivated. I know you want to go after this, but we have to see the potential pitfalls and figure out how do we cultivate that drive in a way that doesn't take them off the cliff too early. Because I have seen that happen in too many kids where they're the super driven kid who's doing all the stuff. And it's not mom or dad that burns them out. It is kid that goes too far, too fast that ends up burning them out. So as someone who has been there, like you just told the story of how you got burnt out on swimming yourself, like, what advice do you give for the parent who has the driven kid that you can see the potential for some danger coming up in that 14, 15, 16-year-old realm if we're not careful in how we cultivate that now?
Yeah, I think as a parent, like my responsibility is kind of pull the reins back a little bit, and as a coach. So the best coaches, like with driven athletes, they're not having to create that drive in those athletes. They're actually having to pull them back and like make sure and you talk about how you want it. This is for the long term. Like if you want to do this, like, and be successful in the long run, we're playing a long game here, right? So we're looking at the long game, not just the short run of what you can do. And so, with my son, like having him play all of the, like we're not allowing him to like just drive into one thing right now and try a bunch of things. And so doing all the middle school sports, I didn't do that. I didn't like when I got to middle school. I mean, I ran cross country and track and I swam. But I think it was hard. There wasn't a lot of time outside of that because I was putting so much time into the swimming, and I loved it at the time, but it pays a cost. There's a cost to that because I couldn't do that forever. And so I think that's the thing you need to like when you're discussing these things with the kids is like having them understand, okay. And you may have to like, if their goals, like once they get to high school is like, okay, I want to get a scholarship, or I want to, play D3 or play, do these things, but it's going to take some work. So maybe they are going to have to put that time in at that, like put some extra time in so they can reach those goals. But also balancing it with not having that be define the only part of them and who they are. And so, yeah, like making sure that you're doing things outside of just sport and not having their identity wrapped up into that. So I think those things are really, really important to being a well-rounded kid. And they'll probably get more, they'll probably be more successful in the long run because they aren't so one-dimensional. And I think, that's what we're in the book that we wrote, How She Did It. 90% of the girls that we wrote, the women that we wrote about in our book, of the 50 women that we wrote about, didn't specialize until high school and had things outside of their sport that drove them. And I think that can be evident in David Epstein's book Range, when he's talking about the overspecialization of people in general, and they focused on those athletes too, and the top athletes in the world. And like they weren't all focused on one sport until end of high school. So I think it's hard though to play out sometimes as a parent, because everything has become so specialized, or it's a big commitment for some of these things. Like if you do decide to make that jump into club, it can be a money grab sometimes, and it can be, it can feel like you don't have you don't have the time or energy to be able to do things outside of it. I think when I was coaching middle school this year, I found it to be eye-opening in terms of, and this is something I'd love to do in the future, but like just kids are growing up so different than how we did, where they're not moving. Like kids aren't playing outside in the front yard anymore. They're not down at the park. Kids are like, part of it is like the neighborhoods kids are living in, but also, yeah, I think culturally we're not, like, our kids just aren't playing. Then there's only PE. Like my kids have PE in school once a week. So that's like hardly anything. Like they're not learning skills to play sports, and that's like, that was where you got to try new things all the time. And if you're only getting that once a week, you're hardly getting that exposure and being able to do those things. And then rec sports are becoming more and more obsolete. So you're not getting like rec sports are important because it doesn't cost as much. It's not a high stress environment. It's where you're able to try things that and fail and not feel, not feel this huge.
It doesn't cost a mortgage for you to fail.
Yes. Yeah. And like it doesn't cost a mortgage, but it's also on the kid. Like it's not a high stress environment, so they can try these things and not feel all this pressure. Where now everything's changing to club, and there's a big financial commitment to that for families, and it's a much more high stress environment because they're traveling to games, they're committed to like practice 3-4 days a week, and it doesn't give them opportunity to try things outside of it a lot of times, because that's a huge commitment for families. So I think I would love to see more rec sports available for kids. And I think the school sports need to be funded better so that kids will play. Like middle school sports are a great opportunity for kids to try things out. I love it in our Scottsdale. My kids are in the Scottsdale Unified School District. In the first 4 weeks, every kid, there's no cuts. So every kid gets to try it. And then they do cuts for JV and varsity. So everyone gets to play for the first 4 to 6 weeks. And then they start doing the team, like it goes to a team. And I think that's important. Like we need to have more opportunities for kids like that, whether it be rec or school sports. Because just coaching cross country and track this year, a lot of the kids that were coming in, it was their first time ever playing, ever trying a sport. And a lot of them are nervous, and they put up walls, and they're afraid to fail, or they're afraid to like expose themselves a little bit and try things. And so a big thing for me as a coach was just like breaking down those walls and creating an environment where we're trying to just this is a starting point. It's not a failure. You're starting here, but we're going to grow to here. So we have to take those steps each day, and helping those kids learn, like, by the end of the season, you'll be a totally different athlete, but we got to try. You got to put yourself out there at first. So, yeah, I think it's important that, yeah, I really, really would love to see, I would love to see a big change where we're providing more opportunities for kids to move their bodies, be outside more, try, like, less committed, like rec sports, pick up
Well,
basketball,
the hard
things.
part is like we like to bag on kids as if kids
No.
today are X, Y, and Z. But what we have to realize, and it didn't start with our generation, so it's not totally on us. It's not the generation before us, but adults in general, like capital A adults, all across the board, have not created a culture and a society that is kid friendly in a way of getting out of the house, moving their bodies, and having free play. Like there's been all sorts of reasons why, and I don't think anyone did it with bad intentions, but over the course of a couple decades, we have built a society that is not free play friendly for children. And none of us on our own can fix that. But we have to acknowledge that these systems that we have set up are working against the health of kids in general, whether that is mental health, whether that's physical health, whether that's emotional health. Like, these systems in place, we are having to fight against unhealthy systems to create healthy kids. And the quicker we can acknowledge that and realize this is going to be hard as parents because the easy things are not set up to be healthy, then it's like, okay, we got a battle in front of us. We've got an uphill climb. Let's go do this. But when you do it with eyes wide open, realizing how hard it'll be, it's a lot less difficult to do because you know what to expect.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that kids today are good kids. Like, I love
They're
working
great
with
kids.
that. I like the middle school kids are amazing. I just did this last week. I just had my cross country camp up in Prescott, Arizona. So I had middle school and high school kids. They, I think they get the stereotype that they're the phone generation or the tech generation. We were up we were up at camp all week, and they were interacting with
Who
each
buys
other.
the phones?
Yeah, exactly. And with opportunity to interact, they choose to interact. Like, they were outside all day doing like the low ropes course, playing volleyball, pickup volleyball games. They were the funniest thing, the differences between girls and boys. Some of the boys were just smashing rocks and like like doing like it's just like the girls would be off doing like bracelets and jewelry. Guys are smashing rocks, but they were choosing to do things where they're interacting with each other and not on technology. And I think we need to create more opportunities for them to be able to do that and feel safe and have fun outside,
Yeah.
So I think
I want to switch
Yeah.
gears completely real quick because we don't have too much time left. And there was one thing I wanted to ask you about, because one of my favorite things, like, I follow you on social, and you put out this guide to create a positive coaching environment. And I loved it when you put it out. And there's a piece of that I wanted to talk about today, because you said that we have to create a safe space for expression where kids can have open communication, share ideas or frustration, and address their negative feelings right away. If we're going to have positive, you were talking to coaches, but as parents, we are coaches to our kids in our house. How can we as parents create that space that kids feel safe expressing themselves in our house? And why is it important in general for them to feel that way?
I think it's super important and I think this as a as a female coach, sometimes like we're the more nurturing of the two, where I was with track and field, it's definitely a more male dominated environment, but I coach both men and women. And I think breaking down the walls where they felt like they could come and talk to you when they feel um comfortable, like where like I had to be vulnerable with them and then they could be vulnerable with me. So I think the biggest breakthrough I had in my coaching career was when I asked for feedback from them on things that I could do to be a better coach. And so it was hard hearing some of that stuff. It was hard, and I got a lot of really good feedback. Um but I took it to heart because a lot of it was true. It was things that I needed to work on and become better. But for if I'm asking them to be vulnerable, I need to be vulnerable myself and work on the things that I could be better. And they want to know, they're smart. Kids are smart, and they're emotionally and like they, I think and as a parent too, you are not their friend. And I think as a coach, I want them to understand I'm not your friend, but I also want to be better, and I want to be the best version of myself and bring out the best in you. And so if there's things that I can improve, it's important that I work on those things. And so yeah, when I asked them to work on things and to like and I let them know how I'm feeling, then they were able to like open up more and be willing to work on the thing. I just had a much better response from them. And so I think, yeah, just allowing them to be themselves in that environment is really, really important. And I saw my best after it took me 3 years to really like, 3 or 4 years before I did that with them. And then I saw this huge shift where we started really growing as a team, and the kids just trusting me more as a coach. And so I try to do that with my kids too. I make mistakes. I tell them that all the time. I'm not perfect. And
I tell my kids all the time, I have never, like, so Olivia is 10. I have never had the chance to be the dad to Olivia at 10 years old before. This is my first time being dad to Owen at 8 years old. So I am learning. This is your first time being 8 years old. It's your first time being 10 years old. So I am learning how to do this just as you're learning how to do it too. So like, I have to apologize. If I want them to own their mistakes and apologize when they make mistakes, I have to do the same thing. And apologizing to my kids isn't a sign of weakness or gentle parenting or any of the buzzwords that people like to throw out. Like, it's treating them like human beings and like I would want to be treated. Like if someone does something wrong to me, I appreciate when they apologize. So when I blow it and do something wrong with my kids, apologizing to them is the best way for us to move forward in our relationship so that we can work towards our common goals together.
yeah, and I think that's a perfect example, but creating ownership in yourself. Like if you're asking them to own up and be responsible and do those things, like when they don't do things correctly, like you need to do it the same way so that you're creating that environment. So yeah, I apologize all the time when I do something incorrectly so that they understand, like I see that I didn't do that, like I see that I can improve on that and I didn't do it the right way. And I want to be a better parent. So, or a better coach or whatever role I'm taking
Or just
on that
better.
time.
Well,
Yeah.
just better in
Yeah.
general. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just want to be like, whatever I'm doing today, I want to be better at than I was yesterday. And that takes being honest with what we screwed up yesterday, not in a way that's filled with shame or guilt or anything. Just like, you know what? That wasn't great. I messed up with that. I can do better here. Let's learn from it and move on. And if we can teach our kids that, that's one of the reasons sports are so great because, okay, maybe you had a bad game. Sure. What are we going to learn from it? How are we going to do differently next time? And let's go out and try to fix it. It's the it's the safest place for our kids to experience the failure they need to experience in order to learn and grow from.
Yeah. And I think, modeling that is the most important thing for the kids. So they understand it's not just them that has to do that. Like you were saying, is my first time being a parent to you. So I'm going to make mistakes along the way too. And I need to be vulnerable and show you that I learned from my own mistakes too. And I own them. So, you can do the same thing.
All right, we got time for one more question. It's my favorite one to ask or one of my favorite. I like 3 favorites, but you know how hard this journey is. You know the things parents are dealing with. You've been there. For those of us who haven't been there, who are parenting kids to places that we never went ourselves, what encouragement would you have for those of us doing that this week as we go out and try to support our kids and their dreams and goals that they have?
I think listening to your kids, like each kid, like we were talking about before, your kids aren't you, but it's such a fun journey. Like I've met, the experiences that you get and the conversations that you get to have with your kids through this process is, you're going to grow and learn so much from this. And it's such a fun ride. And so make sure you enjoy every minute of it. So take advantage like of the time you get to be on the field, but those times where you're driving in the car, you're going out and celebrating with ice cream, you're having the hard talks sometimes, like those are all growth opportunities and fun experiences with your kids, and make sure you enjoy those moments. And you can learn. Yeah, go ahead.
No, you go finish that out.
Yeah, just learn. I think, you learn so much and you meet so many awesome parents along the way too. And I think most of the parents, all the parents that I met mean well, like they're trying to do the right thing and they want to help their kids. And so you guys can help each other through that process.
Before we get out of here, give us the pitch for your book and tell us where we can find it so that we can support you as well.
Yeah. So, my book's called How She Did It. It's a guide for young girls in running, but it's applicable to men too. So it's it's a recipe book for longevity in the sport. And, we have 8 experts that wrote the first half of the book on, mental health, physical training, nutrition, hormonal health, sports physiology. And then the second half is a history of women's running and 50 stories of women that have had long careers in the sport and what they overcame to get there. So if you want a good summer read, it's awesome. And I wrote it with Molly Huddle, and we're actually writing a second book on pregnancy and running right now with Alicia Montano.
That's awesome. Sara, thanks so much for joining us this week. We appreciate it.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on. Thanks, Jonathan.
Absolutely. That's it for today's episode. As a reminder, if you want Sara's book, How She Did It, you can find that wherever you buy books. If you want your weekend playbook, head to healthysportsparents.com/playbook or click down in the show notes for the link. If you like the show today, I'm going to invite you to subscribe on your favorite podcast app or on YouTube. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, it'd be a huge help for you to write up a small review. If you're on YouTube, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button as well. If this episode helped you in any way, the best thing you can do to help us grow this platform is sharing this episode with a friend. Most of all, I hope you enjoy your time with your kids, watching them grow up, watching them play the sport they love, and just having a great time together as a family. Have a great week, everybody. We'll talk to you again soon.